Welcome to Riverdale. I'm your host, Bob Barth, and on this week's episode, we are investigating Chapter 10, The Lost Weekend, with writers Britta Lundin and Brian E. Paterson.
Archie.
Betty. Veronica.
Jughead.
I'm Cheryl Blossom.
For one shining moment, we were just kids. The bright neon lights of Pops keeping the darkness at bay.
Britta and Brian, thank you very much for joining us this afternoon.
Good to be here.
Thanks for having us.
So let's talk. Now, you guys are writers on Riverdale.
That's true.
Staff writers.
And you're both staff writers.
Yes.
So let's talk. Okay, so we're there. Let's talk a little bit about coming on as a staff writer for the first time, and then collaborating together. What was your interview like?
Well, this is both of our first TV writing jobs, so we are very excited to be here. Or at least, Brian, I'm very excited to be here.
I'm also very excited to be here.
Okay, good. I didn't want to speak for you. When I first met with Roberto, I was very nervous and very excited because I had read the pilot for Riverdale and thought it was the best pilot of the year, and I couldn't believe that I was in the room getting to meet him. And now I still kind of can't believe that I got to write on the first season because it was that good. But Brian had a little bit of different experience coming on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, mine was actually through like the Warner Brothers Writers Workshop, and basically they tell us, towards the end of the workshop to rank the new Warner Brothers pilots, and I read Riverdale and knew that was top of my list, and ideally, if I were to get an interview on that show, that if they were to ever offer me a job, then that would be the one that I would go with. And sure enough, that's how things panned out, and that's how I got the job. And yeah, it's my first network TV show.
And it's really interesting. The Warner Brothers, a lot of the studios have these writers' workshops, and the rules are all slightly different, but very similar. Mm-hmm. And for Warner Brothers, it winds up being such a benefit to all parties because first off, it's extremely difficult to get into. There's an enormous vetting process, as I know you guys know, and then once you're in and you're well thought of, they do set you up with meetings with all of their shows. Mm-hmm. And it winds up being a great opportunity now for the shows to take on these writers from the program, because the program actually will pay their salary for, I believe it's 2 years, right?
3.
3 years.
They have the option to keep us for 3 years.
Which is amazing. Mm-hmm. So it's a great way to get your foot in the door at no risk, really, to the creators. And once you're in there, now, of course, you have to make magic.
Yeah,
right.
Absolutely. Well, that's what they're training you for those 5 months when you're doing the workshop. It's a simulated writer's room. So, it was actually, I think the workshop was a bit more intense than our room. Our room is fairly laid back, and there are still tons of ideas being thrown around all the time. But I think the dynamic of our room is a very friendly environment, right?
Yeah.
It's not hostile. Everyone's open to pitch. As long as they're good ideas, it doesn't really matter where they come from. So that's one of the nice advantages of working in Roberto's room.
That's great. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that is unique.
Yeah, absolutely.
Writers' rooms can be brutal.
Yeah. I've heard horror stories.
Yeah,
it's not reflective of Riverdale at all. It's like no egos. It's like a big family.
Yeah.
And I'm not just saying this because I'm on a Riverdale podcast.
It's absolutely true. It's absolutely true.
That's great. Mm-hmm. Well, let's go backwards a little bit. Britta, how old were you when you found your passion?
Yo-yoing, you mean?
Yo-yoing, as a yo-yoer.
As a yo-yoer. No, I got into, I didn't study film or writing when I was in undergrad. I studied political science, and I thought I was going to be like a politician and go work in the White House. And I was really obsessed with the TV show The West Wing.
Of course.
And I sort of realized after a while that maybe I was more interested in writing for The West Wing than actually working in The West Wing.
Okay.
And so I after undergrad, I started working on like film sets and doing freelance production work. And then eventually I went to grad school at UT Austin, and I studied film production there and did a bunch of screenwriting. So, I was in my late 20s before I even started studying this stuff and getting into it.
Yeah.
And then I came out here about 4 years ago and have just been like writing scripts like mad since then, trying to get an agent and trying to get on a show.
Amazing. Are you from Texas?
Oh gosh, no.
Apparently love Texas, just not from there.
No, I'm from a very small town in Oregon, called Astoria, and I think that small town background helps a lot on Riverdale because I can always go, oh well, in my small town we did it this way.
Nice.
Austin's a lovely place to spend a weekend.
And then you've done everything.
And it's good to retreat to a good city again, a big city.
Cool. Brian, how about you? Like when did you get the bug?
I probably got the bug the end of my freshman year in college, because I had sort of a different path. I had always loved film and television. My dad was a big part of that. He would always go to the rental store and rent a few movies, and if it was an R-rated movie, he let me watch like a couple of like the really cool scenes in that movie, and but I didn't actually know that I could make a career of screenwriting until I was in college. And the first university or college that I went to was actually the Naval Academy, so
wow.
My life plan was remarkably different from the one I'm on right now. And like less than a month into the Naval Academy, I knew that I probably should go a different way, and I eventually went to Boston University, and they have a really great film and TV writing program there. And I eventually made my way into the TV writing program and took some specialized classes, and that's when I really knew. And basically my final semester of college, I participated in this program called BU in LA. Okay. And it's sort of like an internship program that Boston University runs. And I interned for Paul Schering and this company called Mercator Pictures, and had various jobs throughout the reality TV industry, was set PA, and was eventually an assistant, and then moved up to story producer eventually. And then I got into the Warner Brothers program, and so that's how I found my way to Riverdale.
Amazing. Now, this is always telling, especially for people who know the Warner's program. How many times did you apply before you got in?
I applied once in 2012 or 2011, and didn't get in.
Right.
Made it to like the top 5%. They send you a lovely letter in the mail saying how close you came to getting to the interview process, but you didn't quite make it.
Discouraging, isn't
yeah.
Stabbing
yeah.
yeah.
So, yeah, so it was tough, but and then I waited to reapply for another 2 years, and that would have probably been my last ditch effort, because the coffers were running low, and I was probably going to move back to Jersey pretty soon. And then, word that I'd made it into the interview round, and basically said, well, I'm putting it all out there. Like, just give it everything I have, and leave that room knowing that you gave it absolutely everything. And a few days later, they called and told me that I had a place in the workshop. So
amazing.
Yeah,
and it's
it was amazing.
Small. How many people are in the workshop?
There were nine of us.
Yeah, it's amazing.
That's basically like the plot of La La Land.
Yeah.
You lived it.
Essentially. Right. I just didn't have Emma Stone with me and cheering me on.
It would have made a difference.
Yeah.
Had that been the case.
Yeah, exactly.
For what it's worth, I applied to the Warner Brothers workshop twice and was rejected both times.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay.
Do you want a tissue?
It still worked out.
No hard feelings.
I know, we're both we're both here.
Well, and it's like they usually get 2,000.
Oh, it's a crazy number.
Yeah, it's insane.
I applied to a lot of the fellowships, and I just kept getting rejected and kept applying and getting rejected, and then eventually I got this job, and I guess I don't have to apply this year.
No,
you're good.
Yeah.
You're good.
Yeah.
Let someone else get a shot at rejection.
I mean, you could be you could be a mentor for one of the people in the program.
Do I want to do that?
I don't know.
You have to know.
For the program that rejected me?
Wouldn't you love to enrich a young budding writer's life?
Yeah, I do. I do want to do
You have to know that there are writers, and I don't know that either one of you are them, but there are the obsessive writers who I know have writing jobs in television and are still applying just to get in, just to say I did get in.
Yeah.
That's great. Now, where in Jersey are you from?
Jersey Shore.
Jersey Shore. I'm a North Jersey boy.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, Vernon, Action Park.
Okay, I'm like around Asbury Park, Red Bank.
A lot of parks in Jersey.
Springsteen land.
Yeah, exactly.
Totally. That's great. Let's talk a little bit about the writing process on the show. Now, you guys are kind of in the very beginning of starting all over again on season 2.
Yeah.
So for when you were brought in at the very beginning of the process, after you'd been hired, you're sitting and you're working with Roberto on the arc of the season. Is that fair to say?
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about that process.
Yeah, I guess the first few weeks of the room, we spend a lot of time mapping out character arcs for the entire season, mystery arc, and basically we try to come up with themes for each episode and big events, or essentially, that we could have in each episode. So it's a nice little way to roadmap the entire season, and it makes writing each episode that much easier when you know what certain points we need to get across with each character in every episode. And some things stick, and some things are more organic, and we only sort of have that idea when it comes time to actually outline and write the episode itself.
Yeah, we start off by filling up an entire bulletin board full of note cards of ideas that are going to happen this season, and those note cards can move around from episode to episode, but it's nice to be able to, when you get lost a little bit and you're trying to remember what direction you're headed for this season, as you look up at the bulletin board and you go, okay, Veronica's going to go from here to here to here to here, and we have to hit those points somewhere along this season. So this is the episode where she does this.
So then, you do have a fairly, by the time you are granted the episode to write, you know the outline is there. It's your job to turn it into something that is page turning,
right?
Right. That's interesting and exciting and told in a creative way.
Yeah.
Which is helpful, extremely helpful, and the fact that you're doing it kind of as a hive mind gets it up on its feet much faster than maybe it would be otherwise.
Yeah, it's a very collaborative room. I've heard stories of other writers' rooms that are a little bit more like, you give a writer a one-page document, and here's the episode, now go write it. And this is not that at all. I think that's maybe extreme. But, this is very much, we are in the room discussing the outline until we have a 15-page, beat-by-beat outline of it. And that's when it's handed over and been like, okay, now go write scenes. And you really know every single beat. You've talked through it as a room. You've talked through it with Roberto. It's gone through the notes process. You know it really well before you go off and write it.
That's great. So then the exciting aspect of it is, at what point are you told this is your episode?
Yeah, I feel like we knew right at the very beginning, didn't we?
Oh, really?
Really?
I feel like when we finished episode 9, it was like, okay, Britta and Brian, you guys are doing 10. Is that true?
Yeah, like he told us in the room. He sort of like announced it to everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's there's still an element of surprise there.
It's a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, and now we have to perform.
Yeah, now it's
Can't
like you're
just
up.
be witty in the room. Now we have to go be good on paper. Right?
Yeah. And although I'll say, we're very witty in the room.
I bet. It comes across on the microphone. I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
When I spoke to Yolanda early on in episode 2, I asked, how did it feel? Because she did episode 3. And it was the first one that anyone had written beyond Roberto.
Yeah.
And she was just like freaking out.
Yeah.
Which is a tremendous amount of pressure.
Yeah, I mean, so that was so early in the season that we were all just still trying to figure out, who are these people, who are these characters, what's the tone and the feel of the show. By episode 10, I feel like we're like, okay, these are the kind of jokes Roberto likes. This is the kind. This scene feels like a Riverdale scene. That scene doesn't feel like a Riverdale scene. You're starting to get it a little more.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, and certain people in the room understand the voices of characters a little better than others, and some might be better with Archie's voice, tends to be more masculine and sort of in tune with like his music and stuff, and then other people are strong with Betty's voice. Like Britta wrote like a killer Betty scene, like multiple killer Betty scenes throughout the season. So there's a really nice like cohesion to our room, and that's why I think our episodes meld together so well.
That's great. Now, you guys are not a official WGA writing team. You're paired up on this episode.
Right.
So it becomes a collaboration by fire, so to speak. How did it work for you guys? What was the process?
Yeah, it was, we were sort of finding the process as we went. I feel like there were times where we would just split up scenes and say, okay, you write those, I'll write these, and then we'll trade and we'll look over what the other person has written and maybe rewrite it a little bit. And then there were other times where, especially this episode came a little late in the season, and we were running a little behind schedule, and we were running on a very tight schedule, and there were times where we just like both sat down in front of a computer and we're like, okay, we gotta pound this out.
Yeah.
And then we discuss every single word.
Yeah. There's certainly times when we had to like pour over every scene multiple times and make sure every line tracked and was perfect and sounded and flowed correctly. But I think by and large, like our process was, we would, like you said, like divvy out the scenes and have a go at them, and then trade them. And if there were notes to be addressed, then we would address those. But it was very, very easy to work with you. So, high five.
Thank you.
That was adorable.
Yeah. We get along great.
Yeah.
You guys.
No, it was totally smooth. Like there were no like hiccups along the way.
That's
at least
great.
I saw. Yeah.
Yeah. Unless we were really
You're like,
hungry.
God, you were awful. It was terrible.
This is a terrible scene.
Why are you lying for the podcast, Brian?
No, honestly, like my experience working with Britta was great.
That's great. That's neat. And then when you have your draft, you never say final because it's never final, right?
Right.
It goes to the boss.
Yes.
And he takes a look at it. And
yeah, everything runs through his computer, and then he'll rewrite it, and then after he rewrites it, it goes to the writers' room, and we all table the episode, and then everyone's weighing in. And that was relatively painless. And then after that, it goes through the notes process for the studio notes and the network notes. And that was illuminating because I had been hearing about studio network notes, but I hadn't gotten to sit in the calls before.
Yeah.
So that was fun to sit on a conference call, and you're listening to people who do this for a living, who read scripts and give notes like that, and they're very good at it.
Yeah.
And you're going through, yeah, and you're taking their note and you're running it through your brain and being like, okay, what's that mean for this script? How do we adjust that? And if we adjust this in Act 3, how does it affect Act 1? And what do we need to change in Act 6 to make that all work out? And you're doing the math, and I'm frantically doing the math, and then I look over at Roberto. He's like, okay, here's what we're going to do: this, and this. And they're like, we love it. And I'm like, oh, Roberto is so good at this. I feel like I've been writing for a long time in order to get this job, and I still have so far to go, because then I look at Roberto, who is so good at just like crafting story and understanding how to tweak it and change it in these like very fine surgical ways that make the story better. Right. But it's so tricky to do that kind of math, and he's very good at it.
Extremely tricky.
Being on that conference call, it's almost like watching Roberto is like watching him play a game of chess with the network in the studio. It's like point counterpoint, and a lot of the times they would be totally fine with going in a new direction that Roberto would just pitch on the fly, and it was pretty remarkable to watch.
Yeah, and it is. I mean, it's absolutely a lesson from the production and edit. Various cuts, I would hear the calls from that angle too, and his take, and it's a challenging and difficult process, and extraordinarily political, primarily because it's a large company, and then it's a large network, and there are all these people who have jobs that more or less require them to say something. Right? So then from the creative point of view, you have to be able to take all of this stuff in and go, okay, that's worth thinking about. That was just someone who needed to say something.
Right.
what's cohesive, what can land, and what can we actually affect on the page without, because honestly, and you guys know this, if you were to take every single person's note and turn it into a script, it would be unreadable, right? It's just because it can't be all of those things to all different people. That's when you lose a voice.
Yeah, and also there's times when they'll say something and they don't know that we in the writers' room have already discussed or turned over that idea for 3 hours, last week, and figured out that it didn't work for whatever reason. Right. But then that's Roberto's job to step in and be like, well, we talked about that, and here's why we feel like it doesn't work. And if they still think we should try it again, then maybe we try it again, and maybe they're right, and there's a way to look at that we haven't looked at it yet. Or we just stick it in there and we change other things in order to make it work that we hadn't ordinarily thought about it. Yeah, there's always a way to tweak a story to make people happy.
Yeah. And that's the advantage, because Roberto knows the characters so well and knows their histories. And, if someone would be like, oh, I just can't picture Betty or Jughead doing this certain action, and Roberto would just be like, well, they actually had a storyline in this version of the comic from 30 years ago. And they'd be like, oh, great. That's totally fine then. We can totally do that. So just the fact that Roberto is there all the time and
he knows
the world. Yeah,
and then people are even more on edge because this is the first season of a show, and it's a lot of money, and everyone is so desperate that you're going to lose the audience or you're going to offend people. How do we make it exciting? How do we make people buzz about it online? There's so much at stake, and it's so easy to get lost in that. But so to be able to kind of rise above it and go, no, we hear what you're saying, and we're still giving it a very specific voice, is it's a completely different skill set altogether. That's great. All right, so let's get into episode 110, The Lost Weekend. Now, this has been known in our office here as being one of, if not the, most exciting episodes. I can't say the. Finale is amazing. It's amazing.
How about most exciting to date?
Most exciting to date.
Yeah,
but 110 is absolutely spectacular, and obviously anyone who's listening to this is nodding their head in agreement right now because there's so much going on. It's exciting. It's fun.
Yeah.
It works on all different levels. So we're going to go through this now. And so the Act 1, Fred and Archie are discussing the divorce. It's kind of coming to a T in this episode.
Yeah, and this I was excited to get to write some Fred scenes because Fred is out of town for most of this episode, and so there's not a running Fred arc, and so but we just get a little pop of Luke Perry at the beginning and the end.
Yeah, and it's always been a sort of a looming question of where is Archie's mom, and how are we going to address that, and we finally get to it this episode a little bit and explore a little bit of history and the relationship Archie has with his mom and a little bit, and it's interesting.
Yeah, it's very it's sweet, and it's interesting. And then beyond this episode, how things play out. It's very. I mean, this is one of these scenes, and this arc in particular is one of these that is extraordinarily relatable. It's not the overwhelming Arch storyline. This is one that so many people can relate to.
Yeah.
And, just I tell you what, you put Archie and Fred out on the porch, guaranteed you're going to have a great scene. Those guys have great scenes on that porch.
That's true.
Pilot on, right? And Fred continues to be father of the year, of every year. He's the amazing parent.
It's a tricky situation. Yeah. And he's trying to do his best.
He really is.
Yeah.
Over to the lodge apartment, Hermione asks Veronica to testify for Hiram. Then we're going to get back over to Riverdale High Student Lounge. Archie's going to tell Veronica what he overheard at the Blossom's house. That it's possible that Mr. Blossom is responsible for putting Hiram away.
Yeah, this scene... a little behind the scenes anecdote was the first scene Brian and I got to see shooting when we went up to Vancouver to oversee production.
You guys both went up to Vancouver for your episode.
Yeah, and it was great. And so we had seen 9 episodes of Riverdale up to that point, and so you're pretty familiar with the actors, and we'd met them all, and were very familiar with the sets. But when you first walk into Riverdale High School, and you feel like you're standing in a high school. Like, it's real, and there's classrooms on either side, and there's lockers that work, and there's students everywhere. They're background actors, but they're it's like flashbacks.
Now it's a junior college, the high school
that we shoot in.
Yeah.
Well, this scene we shot on our set on a soundstage.
Oh, is the set on the stage? Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah, the student lounge is one of our built sets. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So then this scene where Archie and Betty tell Veronica what they heard was the first scene that we got to see them shoot, and those actors are so good at what they do. You watch the dailies come in, and they're just nailing these performances moment after moment. And it's like 7 a.m. and I've barely even had my coffee. I'm barely awake, and I'm sitting there at the monitors with my headphones kind of falling off and dozing off in my seat. And then they're just like bam, 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 being funny and witty and like beautiful and killing it.
Yeah, that's a heavy moment too for Veronica in that scene. Like getting that news that one of your friends or frenemies' fathers could potentially be the person who's responsible for putting your own father in prison, and she's been without her own father for several months now. So
yeah,
I really think she nailed that just hurt she felt in her gut. It's just it's terrible. But yeah, that's a great scene.
Yeah, Veronica unfortunately is in a position where she's constantly having to apologize for things her parents have done to lots of different people, and it's a tough way to be in, especially when you are still kind of the new kid in town. Being remarkably attractive, I'm sure doesn't.
She's got that going for her.
Now, another thing I thought of when you guys were up there, how much rewriting on the spot?
There was like a line or two here and there. Sometimes the actor would say, "Oh, can I change words to this? This fits a little better in my mouth when I say it this way."
And you'd scream and throw your script down and push your chair over. And
I'd
walk
say,
out.
"You're fired."
Find someone who can read it.
I'm sorry, KJ. It's just not working out. But yeah, no, not that much. Not that much. It was mostly.
I didn't do any rewrites. Did you do rewrites?
I feel like there were a couple questions about that.
Yeah, just on the fly questions mostly.
Got it. And you're so the director on this was Dawn Wilkinson.
Yeah.
What was that rapport like between you and she?
Yeah. Yeah, she was very receptive. She was. It's interesting that because the directors just come on for an episode.
That's right.
So the thing that we can bring that she doesn't necessarily know is we know what's going to happen after this. We know what's come before this. She's seen the episodes, but we have the big picture in our minds. So we know like what this moment means for Veronica, where this story is taking her. What Jughead's. We have a whole history in our head about what Jughead's birthday is like, and what that means for him moving forward. And so that's stuff that we can talk to her about and inform the scenes.
And also this episode is very dynamic. There are a lot of scenes, there are a lot of people on set, and it's just the sheer number of things that she probably had going through her mind, and she really made it all come together really beautifully. And I think you really see that at the party.
Yes, definitely. Definitely. All right, so back over to Riverdale High School, Archie tells Betty it's Jughead's birthday.
Yeah.
And we will soon see what that is all about. Back over to the construction trailer, Betty calls FP and invites him to a birthday dinner for Jughead.
I love that scene because I just love seeing Betty and FP in a scene together because they're so different and they have just a funny little rapport, I think.
Yeah, and it's very sweet of Betty too to want to do this nice gesture for Jughead, not just throw him the party, but go the extra mile and have someone who is really special to him be there for him.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And it's funny you should mention that, Britta, because I rewatched the episode this morning to prep for this, and you're absolutely right. Skeet as FP, when he's alone with Betty in her room, the impression is that there must be someone, he's being set up. He's about to say, there's a young woman in this trailer alone with me.
Yeah.
No good can come of this.
Yeah, you see those two in the trailer, and it's like that moment from Kill Bill where they're just like going at, just like you just expect someone to like Betty to throw a right hook at him or something, just throw down.
But FP declines, Jughead's never had a party.
Yeah, it's not sad.
Yep.
Very sad. Very sad. So back over to Riverdale High School cafeteria, Veronica plans to dig into why the Blossoms would want Hiram in jail. Tells Betty to plan Jughead a surprise party because, if you've never had one and you don't want one, if you ambush people, there's no way for them to back out. And of course, Chuck returns.
Yeah.
This is a huge confrontation.
Yes, and what a great return that is, where he enters in slow motion and the music
The
kicks in and the
flashbacks.
flashbacks. I love that moment.
Yeah, he's the one guy who gets under Betty's skin. He just rattles her.
Yeah.
And we see once again, bubbling up from underneath, Betty's rage issues.
Yeah.
And she composes herself and then she snaps, which is kind of, I love to see the real Betty kind of be angry.
Yeah.
Don't be perfect all the time. And, one of the things that all y'all do so well on the show is kind of show exactly how these kids came to be by reflecting how this exists with their parents. We understand clearly by episode 10 how Betty has this dark Betty aspect to her because of her parents, from her mom in particular. It's about keeping it all bottled up inside because presentation is everything. And Betty's just not that girl, and no matter how she fights it, it's it's exciting. So at the end, it's decided that there will be a party. It's going to be at Archie's, and it's going to be epic.
It's going to be epic.
It's gonna be epic. Yeah, and let's not forget that Ethel is also in this scene, which I love. Anytime we get to bring Shannon Purser back, because she's delightful.
Yes.
Yeah.
As a huge Stranger Things fan myself, it was so exciting when we found out she was going to be on the show.
Totally.
And I mean, I don't think you, I'm sure, know Shannon better than I definitely, but has she fully embraced that she's become like an overnight instant character that's going to live on forever?
Oh, I think so. Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, when we first met her, it was last summer, like 2 weeks after Stranger Things had premiered or something like that. And I asked her, I was like, is this really weird for you? And she was like, really weird. Really weird. But now it's been a year. I think she's, she owns it. Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's delivered.
And she kills it as Ethel. I love her as Ethel.
She's so great as that.
Yeah.
She's perfect.
Yeah.
Act 2, over the Andrews construction trailer, Betty shows up to invite FP in person. Then Riverdale office, Alice settles in as the new moderator. And of course, there's some trust issues boiling between the two of them, as there tend to be. At the Andrews house, Jug tells Archie why he doesn't like his birthday. This is the saddest story I have ever heard. I know there are plenty of people that don't want attention.
Yeah.
But Jug's story is, and I shouldn't laugh, this is uncomfortable laughter. Jug's story is that his family was always in such distress that they would fake it for his birthdays, and that just made him feel even lonelier.
Yeah.
So he doesn't like that sort of fake,
Yeah. Well, it's like inauthentic. It's not real. It's like he'd just rather everyone just acted normally. And acting normally to Jughead is when they ignore him.
Yeah.
And that's a sad way to be. And now he's got his friends who are trying to do nice things for him.
Yeah.
And you just get the sense, knowing that this surprise birthday party is coming, that it's gonna. I like this sense of like foreboding of like, oh no, this is gonna go badly.
Yeah. And it is sad in Jughead's upbringing. He had a tough life, and there's some damage there, and it's like putting a Band-Aid on a gaping wound. It's like just because it's his birthday, they're gonna act normal per se, and it's just tough.
It is tough, but it also it's interesting. It very much explains who Jughead is when we meet him in the pilot. That takes people a minute to wrap their head around, and it's the onion that slowly unpeels throughout the season. Why is Jughead this, as we understand, pleasantly nice guy, becomes such an outsider, becomes so much an outsider that he's actually documenting it as if it's not his life. He's observing people around him.
Yeah.
How does that come to be? And we're now getting a fuller picture of exactly how that's come to be.
Yeah. I think we learn a little bit more with FP, and we learn a little bit more with his family, and interesting things to come with Jughead.
Absolutely.
Also, can I just say I
Please.
love the way Cole puts that pizza down in that scene. He like dances it out of the oven and onto the counter.
Oh, yeah.
I just want to point out that moment because
like,
it's one of
"It's
my
like a hot
favorites.
pizza.
Oh yeah, that
Gotta
pizza is
blow my
stone
fingers.
cold.
Yeah.
That's like great acting.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. It's the same pizza they've been working with for 8 hours.
Yeah.
And Jughead's like, dude, you couldn't make some burgers? Like, it's the night before my birthday? Jeez. Thanks for the frozen pizza,
Frozen
bud.
pizza. Nice, Archie.
Back over to the lodge apartment, Veronica digs up history between the lodges and the Blossoms.
Yeah, best part about this scene is that Veronica is wearing glasses.
Yeah.
Oh,
She
interesting.
goes into her little investigator mode, and
Yeah.
she wears the eyeglasses.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She requires reading glasses. Had not thought of that. All right.
Very fashionable one.
Very fast. Yeah, of course.
Yeah, studying Veronica. I think we should bring that look back at least once an episode.
Yeah.
Definitely. So it's going to connect. This is the possibility that this is going to connect Hiram to Jason Blossom. So
Yeah.
this is a big moment to the mystery.
Yeah.
Over to Riverdale High, Veronica has a dance off with Cheryl.
Yeah.
Refuels their feud. All right. So as an enormous fan of dance offs, I love this scene. Plus, and this is what I get to contribute. I was the one that came up with the song.
Oh,
Great.
You're welcome,
well
everyone.
done. Well
There were
done.
it was one of a couple that I pitched, but yeah, it seemed to work out just fine.
Yeah.
But it is a delightfully fun dance.
I love
Yeah.
the dance off. And it's funny because it's like, what's the first thing you do when your mother tells you specifically not to talk to any Blossom, specifically Cheryl? You challenge her to a dance off in the very next scene.
Of course you do.
Yeah.
This is just like one of the fun part about Riverdale is like you can go from a really intense relationship scene between Archie and Jughead to an intense scene where Veronica's trying to find out the truth about her father to a dance off,
Yeah.
and it all goes together because
And it
that's the
makes-
kind of world that Riverdale is.
Absolutely, and it
Yeah.
makes sense. There's
Yeah.
something that's delightfully cohesive about the whole thing, and hey, let's not forget that actually there is plenty of story that's being told in this dance-off about the relationship between the two women, and that's going to then kind of keep the ball rolling with the rest of this episode. So there is that beyond a dance-off, which, by the way, could happen every other scene as far as I'm concerned. It's continuing to tell this story in a really fascinating way. And the dance-off, too, has two of my favorite end results. One, the look on Betty's face at the end where she is just completely delighted with Veronica. And then Cheryl tearing into, her two friends.
Oh, those poor Raptors.
Yeah.
Are they friends?
Or, yeah, paid acquaintances? I don't know. Yeah,
Yeah.
but she's has some really kind words for them.
Yeah.
Dance-off. Work in season 2. I think we need more.
Okay. Yeah. Let's send that note up the chain.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, over to the Andrews house. Fred checks in on Archie. Getting deeper into the fact that this temporary separation is becoming solidified. This is going to be a divorce.
Yeah. Yeah, and you really get to go inside Archie's mindset here where you can tell where he's not doing good with this situation. He's and it's not going to bode well for this surprise party. He's going to be in a dark frame of mind for it.
He is. And, we're doing something that is very 21st century here. We're not shying away from the fact that Archie's going to go to the liquor cabinet.
Yeah.
I mean, that's something that I don't even think 10 years ago we would have done
Yeah.
on a show of this nature. It's I want to say it's adult, but I think it's very honest.
Yeah. I do think it's real. I think it's something that
Yeah.
kids definitely do, and it's nice that we're allowed to show that. Yeah.
Yeah, and the themes of this episode were sort of order and chaos and how people deal with things. And I think there has been a ton of chaos in Archie's life over this past year, and some people deal with it in a healthy manner, and Archie just this once sort of reaches for the liquor cabinet, like you said, and yeah, it's interesting.
And Archie's always considered to be sort of the rock, the stable guy. And even though we have had plenty of examples throughout the seasons to date that is not the case, it is still a little more distressing when Archie goes to the liquor cabinet. You're like, well, if Archie's going to go to the liquor cabinet...
there's no hope for any of us.
Exactly.
Yeah.
At the end of Act 2, we're going to go to the Pop's chocolate shop. Cheryl makes a plan for Chuck.
Oh, that's a fun team up, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Great.
Team up for destruction.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's... here's my feelings about Chuck. For me, there is no redeeming quality to Chuck. Right. I mean, and this is being completely objective. There's nothing about Chuck that earns me back. He has proven that he's a very beautiful, awful human being. Cheryl, however, always rides the line between being that, and then we have seen, even up to 10, we know where Cheryl comes from. Now, Chuck may have a very interesting backstory as well that we're just not privy to yet. That might explain him. But this team up for destruction, it's frightening because we know what Cheryl's capable of. And we definitely know what Chuck's capable of as well.
Yeah, and you're right, because we haven't seen any redeeming qualities in Chuck, and we know that something very dark is about to go down when these two team up, for sure.
Absolutely.
So are you saying when Chuck in the lunch scene was apologizing to Ethel that you didn't believe him?
I had a hard time. I was with Betty with,
Wow.
Get away from her! And I also got a kick out of the fact, and again, kudos to you guys and to the honesty of Ethel going, Betty, go away, you're ruining everything.
Yeah.
I understand he's an awful human being, but he's talking to me.
Yeah.
Betty wasn't sitting at lunch with Ethel.
Right.
She was over there alone.
She was by herself, and he's like, the most attractive boy just came in, regardless of the fact that he was just expelled for doing horrible things to women.
Yeah.
It was pretty amazing. Actually, the other thing that just reminds me of is obviously Chuck is back after being expelled we had the big hot tub scene in
3.
Episode 3. Thank you. And there's that amazing scene of Ethel sticking her head in the door and just taking it all in with a big smile.
Yeah.
Yep.
Love it. Top of Act 3, over to the lawyer's office. Veronica receives the threat from her father. And in the threat, we learn that basically Veronica is being forced to speak on behalf of her dad, because if she's not, he's going to go after her mom.
Yeah.
And in retrospect, go after her as well.
Yeah.
And it's not the first time we've seen, a parent threatening Veronica, or at least acting behind her back in a way that is, very dark and not very family-like.
Yeah.
It's another really hard moment for Veronica to digest in this episode.
Yeah, and whatever problems she has with her mother, she still feels like she needs to protect her. And when this letter comes, that's basically threatening Hermione.
Yeah.
It's now Veronica's like stuck in this impossible position between her two parents, and now they're threatening each other. It's madness.
Yeah, and she understands that her mom is a complicated human being.
Yeah.
And even more so as this will unfold. But she's in a position where she constantly feels like she needs to kind of protect her mom.
Yeah.
In a way that Hermione should probably be doing a little bit more for Veronica.
And I also think this is Veronica's first taste that her dad is not quite as good of a guy as she originally thought. In the pilot she was sticking up for her father, and slowly, bit by bit, she's getting that's wearing down, and she's seeing terrible things that he's done.
Yep.
And this is one of the worst. To threaten her own mother is something that she's going to have a hard time forgiving.
Yeah.
Definitely.
I think we know, too, that Veronica would want the full truth before she acts and testifies, too. We've seen it. She's trying to do the research. She's trying to make sure that, maybe her father is not involved with Jason Blossom's murder in any way. So she wants to be absolutely sure before she does.
Definitely. Over to the Bijou Theater. They are watching American Werewolf in London. A great line. And I will credit you both. I don't know who specifically wrote it, but I love the line where Jughead asks her, I didn't think this would be your kind of film. And she says, absolutely not. I'm all about the beast within.
Yeah.
I'm totally paraphrasing and ruining the line, but whomever.
Yeah.
Does anyone want to take credit for it?
I think that was Roberto.
Roberto.
I know you were.
I'm sorry, guys. I was softballing it to you. I was really hoping.
Yeah. God. I'll just take credit for it.
All right, awesome. Very well done, Brian. That's great. That's really funny. Back over to the Andrews house. The surprise party starts. Veronica's upset. Archie's already drunk. Joaquin overhears the Blossom Lodge scandal.
Ethel's holding her pee.
Yeah, poor Ethel.
Yeah, she just can't catch a break.
Right at the top of the scene. Hold it, Ethel. Ruin everything.
Yeah.
Also, we hear Betty sing for the first time. And I think, and I've seen this scene and I've heard this scene too many times to count. And I think Jughead sums it up perfectly. It was haunting. Everything about that scene, the way Lily sings Happy Birthday, kind of an ode to a Marilyn Monroe, the way it's shot, the almost fish lens on her and Jug with the Happy Birthday thing. I also had decided at that moment that maybe birthdays are horrible.
Yeah.
This seems like a terrible birthday.
Yeah.
So kudos to, again, this is the director and, of course, the writers of kind of putting us in Jughead's shoes. This can be birthdays. That kind of attention, when it's unwanted, can be overwhelmingly awful.
Mm-hmm. I think that's probably my favorite moment of the episode is when Betty is approaching Jughead with this cake, and it is haunting. That's really the only word you can use is haunting, because it's dark, and just the lights from the candles are illuminating Betty's face and
from below, so it's kind of has that
and
horror
she's got
story.
this gorgeous voice, and
she
it's
sings
like
the hell out of that song, doesn't she?
Yeah,
she does, but it's done in such a haunting
Yeah.
I've never heard Happy Birthday sung like that before. It's not particularly warm. It's as if a ghost is singing it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you rarely hear Happy Birthday sung by one person, which is also I love. And that's, again, such a Riverdale moment where it's like, did Betty tell everyone else not to sing? Were they all just so struck dumb by how haunting this was that they're like, I don't think we should join in?
That is a really good point. One I hadn't thought. I love the fact that Betty said, okay, so now here's how it's going to work. It's just me.
Yeah.
It's a solo. Betty gets a solo.
Yeah. And can I just
Yeah.
make a comment of how much I love the crown sweater
Yes!
that she's wearing
I was just about to mention that.
as she's singing the song.
I know, very Jughead-y.
It's perfect, yeah.
Yeah, and available in stores when?
I
know, right?
That would be a
God, I don't
hot
know.
item.
I
It
know,
would be.
somewhere.
God.
I don't think
John
it was handmade
Goldwater,
for
are you
her.
listening?
Ka-ching.
One other thing that I love, this is one of those Hollywood moments, was when I think I wrote the first pass on that scene because I remember writing that it was a hamburger cake, that she made a hamburger cake for Jughead.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And you don't see it super well, but the cake looks like a hamburger.
Now that you say, I saw the cake again this morning and I went, But yeah, now that you absolutely looks like a big hamburger.
Yeah. So that's one of those things where you write in a script, oh, it's a hamburger cake, and you don't realize that, or you realize it, but you don't think about the fact that now the art department has to go mock up a hamburger cake. And they were like sending Roberto like 12 different hamburger cakes. So that was like, which of these hamburger cakes do you like the best? And then because they cut into it on screen, they have to have extra hamburger cakes on the side. So, now because, you write one little thing like, oh, I don't know, the cake's going to be like a hamburger. Now, like, it's somebody, like a bunch of people's job to design and create like a dozen hamburger cakes to have on set on the day That's one of those things where you realize the things you type in your computer have huge ramifications for everyone involved in this production.
Absolutely. I mean, that is sort of the juxtaposition between writing a script and going to production. Every little win that you come up with, production has to figure out a way to do it and manageably do it under budget or on budget at least.
Yeah.
Also, it's nice to have those little signature moments that you know are yours, you know, like the hamburger cake. Like, that was purely Britta's idea. So to see that on screen come to light, it's nice.
Totally.
It's nice to see.
IMDb trivia right now. Hamburger cake. Put that in there.
Yeah.
People
I don't think I can do my own trivia. I think it's like Wikipedia. Someone else has to do it for you.
Someone else. I know the way this works.
I'll have Brian do mine, and I'll do Brian's.
I know Pacino's at home going, they missed that one bit.
No, that's not how it was at all. That's my Pacino.
Wow.
That's good.
That was a
Pacino.
deep, grovelly Pacino.
It's early morning Pacino. So where are we in the party? Archie and Veronica bond over parental problems. Jughead and Betty interrupt with relationship problems. Jughead says he is not normal. Now, what strikes me about this conversation, and again, it's with repetition. Sometimes you have thoughts. I always feel that people who truly aren't normal can't recognize that quality in themselves, right? So the fact that Jughead alone is saying, I wear this crazy hat, that's not normal. But you're aware that you put on that hat every day. So I wouldn't say it's crazy. It's your thing. These are decisions that you are actively making and you are aware of. But he's also fighting. I don't want to be normal. I want to live on the outside. I don't want to get that close to people. These are important touchstones that kind of make Jughead who he is.
Yeah.
And that Jughead is okay with his weirdness, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. But it keeps him purposefully removed.
Yeah.
He doesn't want to get close because
Yeah.
he doesn't want to get hurt. And I don't know a human being on this earth that lived past the age of 13 that can't relate to that in some way or another. You get burned. You decide, what did I do that made me feel so horrible? Well, I did this, and I opened my heart to this person, and I was honest with this person, and I'm never, ever going to do those things again.
Yeah.
And that's part of growing up. And sometimes you grow out of that phase. Sometimes you don't.
Yeah.
Or sometimes it's a couple of years go by, and sometimes 30 years go by.
Right. And sometimes you get better, and then you fall back into it again.
Yeah.
And then, yeah. And we're seeing Jughead is really struggling with that now because now he's with Betty, and she's not going to let him stay at arm's distance.
Absolutely.
If he wants to continue to be with her, he's going to have to find a way to let her in, and that's going to be really hard for him.
Yeah. And that's what's special about Betty and Jughead's relationship is that she sees those flaws and those vulnerabilities, and she's okay with that. And she wants him to open up to her and be sort of this shoulder that he can sort of lean on when he needs to.
They are, at this moment in time, absolutely perfect for each other for those very reasons. They need each other in order to, get past their own demons. It's a really special and well-managed relationship on behalf of the writers because it is complex. I don't know, I'm saying this because, of course, I work on the show. It's the best written teenage relationship ever. No, but honestly, it is. It's very well done. It's very mature, and it is extremely layered, which is challenging. But I think that's the kind of thing that becomes so resonant with the fans, people watching the show, that it's a relatable relationship. Back over to the party. Cheryl arrives. Yes. With half the school.
Yes.
Including Chuck to crash the party. And Moose walks in the door with a giant keg on his shoulder.
Yes.
And we end the act with, hell, one in the kitchen, one in the backyard.
Yep.
That's a great moment, too.
It's a great Animal House moment.
Yeah.
It's like everyone stops and waits to see what Archie has to say.
Yeah.
And like he gives the okay, and it's like it's on.
Yeah.
Archie's ready to go.
Yeah.
Top of Act 4. All right, this is the party scene. Kevin and Veronica remark on the wild, raging house party. Jughead and Archie discuss Betty when FP shows up. Because, when you're having a teenage party and the local gang member makes his way. Also, this isn't what FP thought he was walking into either. He was coerced into a quiet evening with his son and his close personal friends and walks into a raging house party.
Yeah.
Joaquin and Kevin are interrupted by FP. Uh-oh.
That's a great scene.
Yep. Yeah, and you know what? It's a great scene that leads up to a really good scene. And how masterfully it's managed. Joaquin starts walking... where am I? Okay, yeah, Joaquin. So Joaquin starts walking off with him when Veronica recognizes him and learns he's Jughead's dad. So what I love is the scene that happens then next. It's Joaquin and FP are upstairs aside, and we get into a little bit more of the mystery and the gang members, and we get into this thing where Joaquin presents that he is getting close to Kevin to get close to the gang, to be the Archie gang, I should say, to be an insider, be an infiltrator, right? And the fact that it's discussed that he's having this relationship with Kevin from a gang member, you would think would be open season, right? Just, it's not something we're used to seeing, but it's handled so deftly, and FP doesn't blink. He's maybe the most progressive biker gang member I have ever seen depicted on screen. But it's done without question, which is beautiful. Very reminiscent to how Sheriff Keller thinks of Kevin, in that he is very accepting of Kevin's lifestyle, but just as any father would like him to be careful about how he manages his life. So again, so well done. This is, I have the privilege of watching this show with my 9-year-old son, which tends to come up on every podcast. And these moments are the ones I love the best because it just is out there and it's not played as odd or different or funny. It's just life. And when you present that to kids at a younger age, that becomes the norm. It becomes not something to laugh about or snicker about or get silly about. It's just, oh, okay. Love it. Congratulations.
I think there's a lot of value in all different kinds of having gay characters and gay stories, and I think coming out stories are really great. We've seen a lot of those, and so it's kind of refreshing to have Kevin, who's just already out. Everyone knows it. Joaquin seems to be out to FP, and it's fine. And to not have the sort of tormented, what do I do kind of storyline, which we've seen before, which is also valid, but, this is a different kind of take on it, which I like a lot.
Well, because I think the expectation is certainly as, I'm 40 years old and I'm watching it, and the expectation is that FP sees Joaquin in a homosexual relationship and will now become a target for any kind of ugliness. But instead, it turns into just the opposite, that this is a tool that is only going to help the bad guys, right? Which is great.
We're worried in that scene, but not for that reason. We're just worried because we're like, oh God, is Joaquin in some bad stuff? Is FP in bad stuff? Who has done what? Who do I need to be afraid of in this moment? Who's a good guy? Who's a bad guy? You don't know. And that's what you're thinking about instead of the gay stuff, which I think is great.
It's also heartbreaking for Kevin too. We find out in this scene that he's being manipulated, and it's tough.
Is it real or is it not real?
I don't know.
That's the big question.
So Alice is now watching, as Alice tends to do. Not a lot going on in Alice's life, so frequently that she's got the binoculars up against the window.
Well, she's in the neighborhood watch. She has to know if there's a party next door, she's going to be spying on it.
Absolutely. Back over to the house, Betty and Jughead have their big first fight. This is the last thing that he wants. that she did it for her, and he claims, I'm not one of your projects. Stop trying to fix me. It's never going to happen.
Yeah.
And it's very honest, but it's very upsetting. We love these two together. But it's a great scene.
Yeah, you know, I want to give props to Tessa Williams, who wrote the first draft of that scene, and she just nailed it. And even the part that really hit me was when he says he used to laugh at the school newspaper, and now he's writing for it. I hope that part didn't get cut out, because that scene originally was a little bit longer, and we had to cut some of it for time. But yeah, it's just so painful when you're watching him lash out, and you know he's just feeling hurt and afraid and a lot of feelings, and he's taking it out on Betty, and she's trying to do her best, and then eventually he just goes too far and she has to leave. Yeah. And it's painful to watch.
Yeah.
And she did a really good job.
And the brilliance of that argument that they have in that scene is that they're both right in a way. You know, Betty is doing this party out of a place of love, but she's also doing it to compensate for her weakness when Chuck arrives in that cafeteria, and she says, okay, now I really have to have this party for Jughead just to show him how much I care.
Yeah.
And you know, and Jughead's explaining his feelings towards this thing and how this is not what I asked for. I would have been fine with a simple movie and a burger at Pop's, and we call it a night. But that's not the kind of girl Betty is.
No, and again, we've all known those people. The people where, you know, just sending a birthday card isn't enough. They're going to orchestrate a parade and have it timed perfectly so when you're pulling out the driveway, you back into it.
Right.
It's, you know, and it's hard to tell that, and because it does tend to become about the individual doing the things rather than the person they're trying to celebrate. But it's great.
Yeah.
After that, Archie and Valerie have a quick spat that sort of puts the end to the end to the end.
Didn't go very well.
Did not go well. Here's the thing. When you're trying to, I find this to be a rule I live by, when you are trying to reconcile with a former lover, best not start it by being intoxicated and then throwing beer on her. That really doesn't allow a lot of openness to exist.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Archie then drunk calls his dad. Yikes.
Yep.
That was a fun scene to shoot, because we actually Don put KJ on like a spinny disc thing, and then
Had a mounted camera.
Oh, right.
Yeah. So he's turning around, and there's a grip on the ground, like spinning this thing that's like spinning him around. So that's a fun trick shot.
Yeah, the effect is really cool.
Yeah. Looks great.
Yeah. And at the end of the act, Jughead tries to leave the party. Cheryl and Chuck slam the door, lock the door, and start the game Secrets and Sins.
That old party game.
Secrets and Sins. From
From
Hasbro.
right after Twister,
Yeah.
Secrets and Sins. No good of can
For
come
when
of
you
this.
want to ruin all of your friendships. Secrets and Sins.
When you're ready to just burn it all to the ground. Love it. Top of Act 5. The game now, I guess, Murder, gets out of hand, surprisingly enough. So here are the lovely topics that come up during Secrets and Sins and Murder. That Cheryl has been having an incestuous relationship with her brother. That comes. It doesn't.
That's an allegation.
It's an allegation that is
Yeah.
presented in such a way that is upsetting to all. Then we're gonna go right after Archie and Miss Grundy. Dilton Doily, who is very cool. This is the coolest Dilton Doily we have ever seen, with the pop collar and leaning up against. I love this game. Dilton loves this game.
Yeah. He always suggests Secrets
He's like
and
the
Sins.
rad DJ. It's like a
He is the
tectonic shift from the nerdlinger he was in the first couple episodes.
It has finally occurred to Dilton that he's never going to get a girl in the scout uniform. It's time to turn the page here. And yeah, he's all in. So we open. We're going to rehash Miss Grundy. Yeah, Archie, what was going on? And all of a sudden now all the kids know, and Archie can just sit there and really not say much about it.
Be ashamed.
Great. Just another thing to add to Archie's list.
Exactly. And then Chuck goes right after Betty.
Yeah.
And this is probably not the best time to do that to Betty.
Yeah. Yeah, this is when all of the past gets dredged up. Everything from the last 9 episodes that anyone did that was sort of shameful is going to come to the surface in Secrets and Sins. Best not to make enemies out of either Cheryl or Chuck.
Yeah. I mean, and again, it's hard to, like, you can't even go after Chuck because everyone knows what Chuck did and he was expelled for it. So now he's back just to dig up stuff that really hasn't come to light on others.
Yeah.
Yeah. FP ends the party.
Well, the best part is Chuck goes after Betty.
Oh.
Chuck goes after Betty, and it stirs up some feelings in Jughead. Even though Betty and Jughead just had a giant fight, Jughead still leaps to Betty's defense and
physically leaps to his defense.
Yeah, punches Chuck, which is, probably not a good idea. Chuck's got
he
some
gets
muscle.
the worst end of that deal.
Yeah.
He goes flying through a table.
This, I have to say, this is a reoccurring theme for Jughead. Jughead typically is getting the ever-loving snot beat out of him.
Yeah.
But for all the right reasons, I suppose.
Yeah, all the right reasons, yeah.
So FP breaks it up.
Oh, thank God there was an adult at this party to break up the fight. What else?
Yeah, he let the game go on the entire time.
Yeah, he was like, "Oh, I'll sit here for
I'll step in
Secrets
now."
and Sins,
The
but once it gets
only
physical.
adult in the room. And you would think at some point FP's going, I have a criminal past.
Maybe shouldn't be
This
at
may
this
be-
underage party.
Yeah, this reads as a mistake. Anyone who walks through the door is going to go, I think he shouldn't be here.
Who doesn't belong? But thank God he was there because he throws Chuck out of the party.
That's right. Absolutely. And actually winds up giving Jughead some really good advice.
Yeah.
It's time to man up, and Betty needs you.
Yeah.
Stand by your girl.
This may be the biggest father moment that FP has with Jughead.
Yeah.
And it's very simple, but it's one without ulterior motive. He is literally looking out for Jughead as a dad.
Yeah.
And it's great. It's a great moment, and and Jughead needs it. He needs.
And I think FP is maybe the only one who understands Jughead, and in that moment, he's the only one who could possibly tell Jughead what Jughead needs to hear, and have Jughead understand this person gets it, and they're right.
Yeah.
And Jughead turns around and has a really good conversation with Betty that he needed to have.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But of course, this scene ends with one of my favorite moments. Alice showing up.
Yeah.
And FP, you get out of here. I see what's going on here. And FP is a hero to me in this one moment because he gives her the line, despite the fact that you're still hot, you're a giant pain. And only the amazing May Chenamick can allow that to resonate on her face as if, all right. Compliment taken.
Yeah.
On both
Now
counts.
leave.
Now get out.
Yeah.
I mean, albeit from a criminal, but, I've heard worse things. I love that moment so much, and I'm making a big deal of it. She's completely underplays it, but it is... It's delightful.
I know those two in a scene just crackle. I love it.
They really do, and I think it's. I mean, obviously they're amazing.
Yeah.
But they have there's no reason for the two of them to be together. So when they are together, it is exactly electrifying.
Yeah. Yeah, and you get the sense that there's maybe a little bit of history there that we're not diving into yet, but maybe in the future we'll be able to tell those stories.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah. So back over to Pop's Chocolate Shop. Like you said, Jughead and Betty make up. This is a great scene.
Yeah.
Jughead confesses all. And in that moment, Betty, for the first time, confesses her demons to Jugs.
Yeah.
And she opens up her palm, and she has these just torn up nail imprints. This is how she's been managing her stress. She's been hurting herself. And he delightfully kisses her hands and holds her close. And it's great. They are great together. They're going to get through this. We all want this for them. I can just imagine the tweets that will be happening or just happened when the show aired, of people going, yay, because it's so great.
Yeah,
it's a powerful scene.
Yeah, it's hard to see them fight, but it feels good to see them make up.
And it's a fight that I think needed to happen.
Yeah, definitely. They're so different, like on a chemical level. I think Jughead even says that you're like, can two people who are this different make it work? And then you see them communicate and like talk about what they're dealing with, and it's if you don't close down and keep it all inside, if you're able to like open up and talk about what you're going through, they have a shot at least.
And it's that honesty that is it's hard and it's hurtful and it's hard to be that honest.
Yeah.
So the fact that you can then just blurt it all out and get it out there and then be man and woman enough to apologize and take each other warts and all.
Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah.
Over to the Andrews house. Archie and Veronica kiss.
Hey. I think people have been waiting to see that happen for a while.
Yeah.
Since the pilot, maybe.
And Archie definitely goes in there. And Veronica seals the deal, so to speak. At top of Act 6, Veronica wakes up to leave, and we discover that things happened, but not the thing.
Yeah.
The thing did not happen.
Yeah.
Correct.
She wakes up in a very different bed. I don't know, very different, in another side of the room. And she wakes up and she gives him this kiss, and it is so sweet.
I love that kiss.
It's so sweet.
I mean, it is. Yeah, I mean, every heart is melting right now with that moment, and that continuation of her walking downstairs, and her like glow, and I love the moment between her and Jughead, where he knows and she knows, and it's just sort of a really sweet acknowledgement that they're happy. These people are happy. They have connected and found in each other the thing that they needed.
Yeah. I think some people call that the walk of shame, which I think is a bit of a misnomer, because I don't think anyone's feeling ashamed in that moment. I think it's maybe a walk of, oh, hey.
Yeah.
She looks, I mean, and it's not only, I mean, Camilla's, I mean, it's just another young woman on this show that when she smiles, your heart melts.
Yeah.
Jughead, too. Obviously, he does it so infrequently that when he does, you're like, oh, he can do that. He can smile.
Yeah. Do it again.
You do, yeah. But you know, these kids have it so hard that when they do have these sort of moments of joy, you just die for them. And the lighting on this moment of her coming down the staircase, this morning lighting, is it just adds so much to this scene. Love it. Over into the Pembroke lobby, Veronica meets with Smithers and asks a really important question of Smithers.
Yeah, is my father a good man? And that's what she's been struggling with for the entire party, for the entire episode. Is my mother a good woman? Is my father a good man? And she ultimately decides to testify for her father in order to protect her mother. And it's a hard decision to make, but she decides to do it.
Well, and I love Smithers' response is so dignified and accurate that when asked about the father, I'd rather not say. Very telling. When asked about the mother, unquestionably, she is a woman of great love. Veronica reads exactly what that is meant to be said, and decides that she's going to be there for her mom.
Also, just love a scene with Smithers, who we don't get to see nearly enough of.
Absolutely.
What a wonderful actor.
I think season 2, we need a little Smithers and a little Pops.
A little more Pops,
a little more
Smithers.
Pops,
right?
For sure.
Because he's great, too. I always, every time there's a moment with Pops, I'm like, I bet Pops has got some stories.
Yeah. Those walls have ears, and it's Pop, for sure.
Into the lawyer's office, Veronica arrives at the office and makes her statement. Back over to the Andrews house, Jughead and Archie recuperate. At Riverdale High, Veronica and Betty discuss their new suspect, Hiram Lodge. Then into the Pembroke lobby, Veronica receives a new set of pearls from her dad.
Yeah.
Hook, line, and sinker.
Yep.
And we end the episode with a little bit. Every episode on Riverdale kind of ends with a big twist. This isn't a twist, so to speak, but this is more of a more to come.
Yeah.
Right? Archie's mom peeks her head through the door, and as we all know, it is the amazing Molly Ringwald.
Yeah.
Yep.
How excited were you guys for Molly Ringwald to be on set?
So excited.
Pretty excited. She's a legend. I mean, it's incredible.
Absolute legend. Yeah, I mean, this show definitely takes a breath of air from Twin Peaks, as we've said before, and Beverly Hills 90210, but definitely John Hughes Pictures.
Totally.
And she is a staple of that. And it's sort of this for those of us of a certain age, it is this amazing world where we get to see all of these touchstones of my entire youth on the screen together for the first time.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Yeah, it's so great to have the generational divide, because you get to take all of those, young teen actors from those, like Skeet and Luke and Machen, these people who were super popular. They were like the KJ and the Camilla and the Lily of their day.
Totally.
And bring them back as parents is like, great, let's do it.
And it makes sense.
Yeah, not to mention the fact that she looks like she was born to play Archie's mother. Like, it's like...
I know.
It's weird.
It's uncanny.
Yeah.
It was great. When I interviewed Sarah Schechter, it was very clear. Molly Ringwald was someone that she was fighting for tooth and nail to get into this role. And with good reason. She has a giant Ferris Bueller's Day poster on her wall. This is John Hughes has been everything to her, as it has been so many of us. All right, time for some questions from the Twitter world.
Oh, yes.
There we go.
This is from Bughead at Bet's Jug Forever.
I wonder what ship they like.
Yeah, exactly. Good question. I love the way you were writing Betty Jughead relationship. What made you write it so beautifully? Is it going to get better?
Is it going to get better?
Kind of an open-ended question, isn't it?
Yeah.
Sure.
Is the writing going to get better, or is their relationship going to get better?
I mean, will their relationship evolve? And certainly. Will it get better? That I think you'll have to actually stay tuned and watch for.
But thanks for telling us we read it really well.
Yeah.
I agree.
Well done.
Exquisitely.
Pat on the back. Alice at Ali Polly 94 wanted to ask if you ever find yourself in a writer's block, who or what inspires you?
Is this Alice Cooper?
Alice.
She's calling it. She's calling
She's
from
calling
Riverdale. She wants to do. She's got a little writer's block at the paper.
Totally.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of times it's so funny working on Riverdale. We are under such tight schedules that you almost can't get writer's block. It's like, it's not. It's
You
not,
get writer's block?
It's not something.
I don't. Yeah, that
you
doesn't happen to me.
But also, the nice thing is when it's so collaborative that you're working in a writer's room and you've got 10 other writers around you at all times. So if there's ever something where I'm like, I don't understand why this character would do this in this scene, or I don't understand what they're thinking going into this scene or something, you could just I could turn to Brian and ask him, or I could turn to anybody else in the room. And so we're all there to help each other. If Brian, if you told me that you had writer's block all day and you couldn't work on the script, I would be like, okay, Brian, I'm sorry I had to do this KJ too, but you're fired. Sorry.
Yeah. That was a nice fallback. We work in an office with 4 people. All the staff writers are in the same office, so it was easy to ping pong ideas, and we never really got caught in a snag. So the writing process was pretty easy.
And it helps so much that you have a very, more or less, very clear outline of the things that have to happen in the episode. So
Totally.
it's just a matter of
Putting them on paper.
and what's the most creative way succinctly to do it.
Yeah.
Without, putting them in an ice castle that's going to, this scene takes place in an ice castle.
Production's like, okay, so we have some questions about the castle. We're sending you a few mock-ups.
Right.
Tell us what you like the best. Yeah. So Alice, next time you get stuck, just ask Hal, ask Betty, ask Polly if you want. They're there to help you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and if you have the luxury of getting writer's block at home, and it's like in the evening, just go to sleep and look at it with fresh eyes in the morning. And
Is that's what you do?
pretty
just
much
go to sleep?
just go to sleep? You're not under deadline. It's fine.
I love that advice. Next time I get stuck on something, Brian says to go to sleep.
Take a nap.
Yeah.
I mean, I am a night writer, so
Okay.
if I'm writing late at night and I get stuck on something, that's typically the solution, because I know that by then nothing else is gonna come to me. And it's best to just get some rest and look at it again in the morning.
And it's also really, really good to make those steps as easy for you as possible. The blank page is a nightmare. It's a nightmare to every writer I have ever met. But if granted, with this show, you have an entire group of people that are helping you work out this outline. You can do, as an individual, you can do that yourself. Start with the big chunks, then start doing bullet points, and then sure enough, you're going to have what needs to happen in each scene. It makes it a lot less daunting than I have 90 pages to fill up,
Right.
Yeah.
Right? Riverdale, at Riverdale the CW, not an affiliated. No, because if the network is sending us tweets, there's a communication breakdown.
How awesome is your show? This awesome.
Very awesome or really awesome?
Yeah.
What do you think about Thursday nights at 9:00? Okay, so they ask, do you ever read fan theories and think, damn, I wish we'd thought that?
That's funny. I really try to avoid fan theories for exactly that reason, because then what if we want to do it? I think we'd have some legal snafu, and I think we should just think of all the best theories ourselves.
Yeah.
That's the goal.
Yeah. It's always been interesting. I mean, I read a lot of fan theories on
do you?
Twitter. Yeah. I get sucked into the comments and stuff. And it's remarkable to see how in tune our viewers are with these characters, that they can come up with these complex storylines and things we'd never even discussed in the writer's room. People have these, complex theories that, in their minds could potentially happen, but probably won't end up happening on our show. But I think they're interesting.
Which is great. And again, I love reading them too, and I see them come across very frequently, especially as soon as an episode premieres. People have, I think this is what should happen. Well, let it be known, season 1 is done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we are almost always 60 to 80 days ahead of where you are anyway. So frequently when fans come up with theories, you're like, well, that can't happen.
Yeah.
For a bunch of reasons.
Yeah. Unless you're incredibly prescient. Unless you're pitching ideas for season 3.
That would be exactly. Yeah. If you can be forward thinking enough to come up with stuff for season 3. Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly.
And then our final question here from Melly at Fix to Hope. She wants to know what your advice for people of another country who would like to become a writer of a show like this someday.
Yeah.
I'll let you field that one first.
Well, I guess it totally depends on what country it is. If it's a country that has its own film and TV production.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, go for it. The way I started was in production. I started as a PA and working my way up. I was an AD for a while. I started making my own short films, and I just did a lot of writing and showing it to people and making sure that I was constantly improving. And that's something you can do no matter what country you're in.
Right.
If you are in a country that doesn't have film production and you want to move to America, move to Los Angeles and do that, I think I have over 10 friends who live here in Los Angeles who are either currently writers or on their way up to being writers assistants, who are from all over the world. So it's Los Angeles is a cosmopolitan city with lots of different people here, and I think it takes all kinds to make these stories, and I think people with very different kinds of backgrounds and histories and experiences just make television better, and I think we could do a lot more to be a little more inclusive and more diverse and getting those kinds of voices into the storytelling. So come on down. Water's warm.
Yeah, it's tough to be in another country if you want to write television. obviously you can write in your home country, but if you really want to write for LA-based shows, you really sort of need to be here. In terms of like improving your own work, I would just recommend joining like a writer's workshop. If there aren't any that exist, just start one and they start small, but they really do help your work, and hearing other people's perspectives and their notes will inevitably help your script down the line. So just keep writing and save up your money and move to LA.
Yeah,
and get a job here.
And I know it can be very expensive and difficult to move to Los Angeles. So if that's not something that's an option for you, television is great. But I came from filmmaking, and there are a lot of really amazing stories, worthwhile stories that you can tell in just 90 minutes. So that's something that you can do in just about any country. That it takes a much smaller budget and a much smaller crew to make an independent film. So that might be an opportunity for you as well to put together a budget and some friends and find some camera and crew and make a movie.
Absolutely. I mean, all fantastic advice. And the last one in particular is do it. Figure out a way to do it, be it write or web series or whatever that creative thing that you have. The quicker you can do something, not that thing will necessarily be your entry, but it's going to make you better. You're going to meet more people. And as far as the comment about being from all over the world, I was fortunate enough just 2 years ago to graduate from AFI as a screenwriting master. And our class had lawyers from Mexico, doctors, people who were into or had studied and worked in animal husbandry. My point being, of the 12 of us in our class, we all had very involved lives that had nothing to do with screenwriting, where the AFI Institute Conservatory liked us because we had these extensive backgrounds that lend themselves to storytelling. You know, one of the biggest things, I think you guys can attribute this, is that you have something to write about. When you are, and not to say that there aren't brilliant 16-year-old writers and brilliant 18-year-old writers, but what happens frequently is that those people are inspired by all the things that they have seen and invested in before. There is a difference between that and people who have lived a life that they can then pull from. There's no way that I can possibly tell the same story as someone who has been a soldier in Afghanistan and done tours over there and then comes back as a screenwriter, or a lawyer in Mexico. Those are life experiences that are totally different, but they are going to make you, the writer, that much, first off, better, interesting, and more valuable. You know, when they're putting together writers' rooms, even your room, you guys' room is a great example. You don't want one flavor. You need to have people that can be all the different voices of Riverdale.
Definitely.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So with that, thank you both for spending this time. This has been an amazing, honestly, without exaggeration, one of the most popular episodes. And I'm sure the fans can attest to that now.
Thank you.
So keep it up. We are super excited for season 2. I think this is going to be amazing, and very happy to hear that you guys are going to be back for season 2. Very exciting. So until then, take care, everyone. Keep listening. Riverdale is on CW Thursday nights at 9 o'clock. Until next time, hashtag Riverdale Strong.
Walking on a dream. How can I explain? Talking to myself. Will I see again? We are always running for the thrill of it, always pushing up the hill, searching for the thrill of it. On and on we are, calling out and out again, never looking down. I'm just in awe of what's in front of me. Is it real? Now it's changing all the time. Living in a rhythm where the minutes working overtime. We are always running for the thrill of it. Always pushing up the hill, searching for the thrill of it. On and on we are calling out and out again. Never looking down, I'm just in awe of what's in front of me. Is it real when two people become one? I can feel when two people become. Catch me, I'm falling down. Catch me, I'm falling, I'm falling. Don't stop, just keep going on. I'm your shoulder to lean upon. So come on, deliver from inside. All we got is tonight, that is right, till first light. Is it real when two people become one? I can feel when two people become one.
Greg, move your head.